My name is Troy Stewart. I'm 25 years old. I'm the young adult and missions pastor at one church in Midlothian, Texas, and this is my story. I grew up in a Christian family. We went to church all the time. Anytime the doors were open, we were there. And so by a very young age, I realized that I had a need for a Savior. My pastor preached about Adam and Eve and the sin and how all of humanity had fallen and we were all destined for hell. And it scared me, and I thought, man, I really don't want to go there. And then he talked about Jesus and how Jesus could save you from hell. And so I was like, bingo, that's what I need. And so about 5 years old, I prayed for salvation so I wouldn't have to go to hell. And then very shortly afterwards, my life became hell. There was some sexual molestation that had happened from 6 years old to about 16 years old. A lot of physical and verbal abuse from my parents and from other family members. And God wasn't this loving God. God was what I believed to be causing all these things in my life to happen. So I quickly learned to hate him. By the time that I was 12 years old, I was using drugs, and at 13 years old, I was drinking alcohol. The neighborhood I grew up in was deep into gangs, and so I quickly got involved in some gang activity, and things were just spiraling out of control. And quickly I tried to take my life on several attempts, and they didn't work. Just in case you were wondering, that would be really weird to be a dead guy in this video. Tried to take my life several times, and life was just miserable. I hated it, and then come to find out that not only am I horrible at life, I'm even worse at killing myself. And so by the time I was 17 years old, I was in a world of trouble. And I was just throwing my life away. And, there was a guy by the name of Ace who came to my church, and it was really the first genuine Christian I'd ever seen in my life. He just loved God like I'd never seen before. And it was very interesting, and he scared me because he was genuine. So I quit coming, and I was one of the leaders of the church, just like my parents. Even though I was hating God and going off, I lived two different lives. And he saw through that, so I quit going to church. And then he asked my help to help build the youth room, because I've grown up around the construction field my whole life. And so this was my chance to prove to him that I was the good church kid, to win him over. And he had other plans, and that was to show me Jesus in a real way. And so for about 3 months, I was around him, and I really got to see Jesus in a way I'd never seen before. And it was just really interesting. And on February 11th, 2006, it was a Saturday morning, I was actually heading out to the parking lot to go smoke and get high again. And I walked down past his office, and I heard him praying for me by name. I walked into the office, and he was on his face, and he was praying for me, and I felt like a lasso hit me and pulled me into the room. And as soon as I walked in, I hit my knees, and I started weeping, because it was like the love of God was just so real in the room. And I remember I prayed, and it wasn't even the prettiest of prayers. I just said, God, I know you're real, and if you're really as loving as this guy says you are, then I have to have you. You need to shake me until I'm clean, everything's gone, and you need to burn me until everything is gone but you. And if you do this, if you clean me up, then I'm yours forever. And I stood up, I walked outside, and I got high. About a month and a half after that, God called me good on the promise through my salvation, and I cleaned up from the drugs. Very quickly, God became real, very real in my life, in a manner that I didn't know what to do with it. And then about a month after that, I was faced by the DA's office in Dallas with 15 years in prison or longer for all that I'd done. And I remember they asked me to my face why I shouldn't be thrown away and why they shouldn't throw me in prison. And I looked them in the eyes and I said the only thing I knew to say, that was that I had no good reason for them not to throw me away. I remember going home and praying and begging God not to let them lock me up, and that I would do anything that it took, and I'd tithe more, and I'd preach wherever, and I would go on mission trips, and I would be the perfect Christian, and I said, just don't let me go to prison. And then God asked me if I would preach his gospel anywhere. And I said, yes, God, I'll preach anywhere. And he said, will you preach for the rest of your life in prison? And that's when I knew that my faith had to be real. And I said, yes, I'll preach in prison. And he said, you're going to go in, you're going to get honest, you're going to confess, and tell them that you're guilty. So I went in the next morning and I told them that I was guilty, that everything they had against me was true, and that I should be locked away. And the lady smiled at me, and it was the most confusing moment of my life. And she told me that they decided that morning, if I came clean and if I pleaded guilty, that they could show me grace. And grace is how I would define my life ever since that moment. So, who is Jesus to me? Jesus is my life. Jesus is my second chance. Jesus is a fresh start. He's grace. He's love. He's everything. I love Jesus because he first loved me. And I know that's extremely cliche and a Sunday school answer. Of course it is. I grew up in church, so deal with it. But I love Jesus because he loves me, because he pursued me. And he just continued to do it until I finally just had to give in and love him back. I love him because he's not done with me yet, because life's still an adventure and we still have fun. I love Jesus because he's love, because he loves me.
My name is Stewart, and that's my story.
Y'all come back now, you hear?